Welcome to the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast, where we take a deep dive into everything
AI. I didn't know you were going to do that to me.
Typically,
a little
don't,
heads up would be nice.
I am Drew Veach from BizStream and joined by Pete Terryn from New Wave.
Thanks for having me.
We are in the studio. We're in Studio Jefferson today. We are every time we shoot the podcast. It's in Grand Rapids. It's a beautiful studio. And we are powered by ThinkTank Thought Leadership. They handle all of our production. They handle all of our editing. They handle all of our social. They handle all of the direction of this. We've got hella producers on this that really help shape this and help build what it is. If you're looking to do a podcast, even if you're just thinking about it, I always say just talk to them. Just reach out to them. Hit them up on LinkedIn, hit them up on the website, talk to them, just get an idea of what it takes to do this and what it takes to do it right, to make it look professional.
And like I said before, if you want to be cool, have a podcast. And if you're going to do a podcast, do it with these guys.
Absolutely. We got a really cool show today. We're going to talk about crafting an AI strategy for business. AI strategy is something that we talk about a lot because it's the core of everything that you're doing. And today we have Mr. Chad Paulman, from a CEO and co-founder of New Wave Technology Partners.
You may be familiar with that name. Full disclosure, Chad signs my checks. So you hear me kissing his ass for the next hour, that's why.
So feel free to drop comments and sell Pete out to his boss.
But I've been looking forward to this because Chad is very much into AI. It's been cool to have his support, just like AI at New Wave, and we're going to talk a lot about what, where we're trying to help clients with that, but even very supportive of this podcast. And it's thank you for that. And it's been really cool to have your support through that. And so let's have a conversation about AI. So I wanted to kind of kick it off. There's just within the last, so we're recording this on August 21st. About 3 or 4 days ago, MIT released a study and said that based on some research that they did, over 90% of AI initiatives are failing. And so I asked AI to summarize that article for me because I didn't want to read the whole thing and try to tease out like what were they saying were some of the leading reasons that these things were failing. And to generalize it, strategy was a really big component of that. So it's very timely that, because we came into this talk knowing we were going to talk about AI strategy, and then this report came out and is supporting that. So I'm excited to talk about this. Before we dive into the strategy part, I think it'd be cool to hear like how you started getting involved in AI, how you're using it, and I know you've got a couple books here. Maybe talk about the cohort that you're a part of too, and just give people an idea of what your background is in AI.
Yeah. Well, first of all, gentlemen, thanks for having me on the show. Pete does lead the AI initiatives at New Wave. Your license plate, everybody knows that, right, Pete?
Yeah.
Do you want them to know that?
No. It is a vanity plate that has AI in it, and we'll leave it at that.
It might end in love. So yeah, a little background on myself. I started New Wave Technology Partners 20 years ago. It was my brother, Kyle, and my dad, Rick. The three of us started the company. And it's interesting, technology in business transforms every few years. You see the new thing coming, and I've had the opportunity of seeing this happen several times now. Kyle, my brother and business partner, my dad retired about 10 years ago, but Kyle, my brother. So I don't know. Kyle actually signs the paycheck.
I think he does actually sign it.
So you don't have to, well, you can say whatever you want.
All right, good.
But Kyle and my dad and I, we've went through many iterations of the business. If I think back to when we were first started in the business, it was all about telecommunications and video and communications. And we just take all of that for granted today, right? So you think about the transformations, or Kyle calls it having to keep reinventing ourselves. And one of the things I really love doing is just always looking around the corner and trying to see if I can predict what is coming. And a few years ago, I think, Pete, you and I, maybe a similar time, you went all in, but we started seeing that AI, it was really when ChatGPT went mainstream, right? If you talk to anybody that's been in AI for years, they'll say it's not new. It's been around for decades, of course. But I would say the general public, when they hear AI, thinks this is brand new thing that just started.
Yeah.
And so our the question about, where did we kind of jump into AI and where are we at today, was that I saw that AI was going to transform our business again, and that we needed to be at the forefront of that. Or as you said a couple of years ago, Pete, you said AI isn't going to replace you, but the companies that embrace AI are going to either put you out of business or replace you. And I think that really stuck when you said that. And I thought, Pete's right on. We need to really be at the forefront of this. I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I think you're talking about transforming the business is a big part of AI, because that's where a lot of people are today. We talk way more about AI than a lot of the people that we know that are in business. I mean, you're a networking guru. I call you hyper connected when I describe you. So you're talking to people all the time. And I know that whenever you're talking to people, you're talking about AI.
Yeah.
Because that's all we talk about too.
I think your question was, as far as the different groups I'm in and where did I really start seeing things happen? I remember a meeting that I was in about a year ago, and I had a lady who I just have a ton of respect for. She's an amazing business person. I won't name her name because of what I'm going to say she said. Is she leaned over to me and she said, I don't even know how to get started with ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. And she said, why would you even use ChatGPT? And that really struck me, because I thought, wow, this is a person running a great business, and she's asking that question about, why do I need it? What will I do with it? And I just said, let me give you one example. I said, do you write job descriptions? And she said, yeah, actually I have a job posting that I have to put out this week. And I said, okay, tell me what it is. She told me, and I helped her with a prompt to write a job description. And it was that light bulb moment where she just went, oh my gosh. Yep. She said, that would take me hours to iterate on that. And then I would say a big change happened for me when I was in Fort Worth last year for the Entrepreneur Organization. And this guy, I did bring his book just to plug him, because he's made a big impact on me, is Jeff Woods. He's got this AI-driven leader. And it was the idea that the leadership of the organization, if they don't embrace AI, they don't get behind it, they don't have the strategy, and if the leadership isn't the one pushing AI, it's not going to be successful. And that Jeff talked a lot about that in that presentation that he gave when I was there last fall. And I had the opportunity of meeting Jeff that evening at dinner, and he asked me to join it's called the AI Collective, a new cohort he's putting together, and he launched that in January. And I've had the opportunity of being a part of that, and I've met so many fascinating. In fact, sometimes I have imposter syndrome sitting in these rooms with these people that are just like, holy crap, the things they're doing. And building. I remember the first person talking about having AI agents on their org chart, and I just like, oh my gosh, right? So. And also, I even go back before that, Ethan King, he's another book I brought is just the ChatGPT to double your business in 90 days. It was all about this idea that if we're going to be business leaders and we say we want to do AI, let's start using AI. Let's find ways, even kind of that crawl, walk, run. Let's start using it in our business, looking for opportunities. And I know we're going to spend time talking about strategy today, right? But it's that idea that, okay, let's have a plan too. And I think of the people, no shortage of examples of people I've spoken to who have said, I tried Copilot or I tried ChatGPT and it didn't do what I wanted to. So I don't think that stuff actually really works. And Pete, you and I have heard people say that. So
yeah, I was sharing in a previous recording this morning that there's a client who I was talking to about AI, and I had mentioned, hey, we could help you with your AI strategy. We've got this, half-day strategy thing that we can do. And the response was, yeah, I just don't think we're ready yet.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to drive over to where he was and sit down next to him and grab him and be like, dude, I know you're not ready. That's why you need to talk about it.
That's the point of the strategy.
Did you just listen to yourself? And it's so hard for especially the three of us, because this is what we talk about all day long, unless we're with our wives and they won't let us talk about it. But other than that, we're talking about it all the time. And it's so easy to forget that there are people who are just not paying attention to this. And that's why we have the podcast. That's why we have the meetup. That's why, we're doing all these things, is to bring awareness. And if you're saying that you're not ready, that's a problem. And you need to get ready.
Well, and as a business owner, past 20 years, you've seen stuff come and go. You look at it and you have to weigh it going, is this something that's going to affect my business? Is this something that's going to affect my customers that I need to know? You get a working knowledge, at least, of almost everything that comes out. this was clearly something that this is not going to be flash in the pan. This is here to stay. This is going to revolutionize how we work and how we put stuff together. So I think it's imperative, like you said, you're going to get replaced by somebody that knows it if you don't know it already. Just to have that business edge and just to stay on the forefront of people, you have to know what AI can do for you, where the threats are, and what it can do for your customer. I think is going to be the biggest thing, because that's what the customers are coming to you for, is how can you help me with it?
Exactly.
So to kind of to segue into the strategy, I'm a little bit of inside baseball here. You and I didn't talk about this ahead of time, but you and I are both very open. I'm sure you'll be fine with this. So Chad and I are both.
Here we go.
Can we pause?
These are all the secrets we want to hear.
Ryan's getting the edit button ready to go. Chad and I are very similar in the fact that if you were to put us on a leadership spectrum on one side is visionary and one side is execution, we're both very heavily weighted on the visionary side of things, which is...
I think I actually go on the other side of the scale.
Just fall off.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
And it's awesome when we get to sit and talk about that stuff, because you put visionary people together and you can have some hellacious conversations, and it's so much fun, but not a lot gets done.
And nothing gets done
out of that. So it can be a problem too. But we were, the three of us were talking. It was you and your brother Kyle, who does sign my checks. We're talking, and we're talking about AI, and we're talking about future planning. And he stops and he looks at me and he goes, "Pete, what is our AI strategy?" And I had to look him dead in the eye and be like, "We don't have one."
Right.
We've been talking about this for a long time, and we've had some great conversations, but without intentional direction, you are just going to be talking about it. And as uncomfortable as that was, because you guys look at me as the AI expert and I know a lot about it, but we weren't doing anything with it. And it was such a, talk about light bulb moment. That was a light bulb moment for me. So we instantly went to work in creating an AI strategy and then an offering where we can be that for other companies. And so I think I want to take a little bit of time here and go through some of the things that we had talked about in this, our audience here being business owners or, leaders that want to, take a step forward with AI, and talk about things that in sitting down and being very intentional, bringing things up that people probably aren't thinking about when they're thinking about implementing AI. Because right now it's like agents, I need agents. Yeah, you probably do. But what's your plan for agents? What's your plan for, well, I guess I'll just kind of start. So there are some foundational levels. And, when you think about, and I'd love to get your perspective on this too, because for you in the seat of the CEO, that AI is going to be effective and it can help us, but you don't know how effective. So one of the things that we need to do in the beginning is you start like measuring what are the measures that you want to impact? Is it revenue? Is it margin? Is it the number of clients that you're seeing, or you want to reduce the amount of time that's being spent on whatever? And so where do you see that from your CEO seat? Like, how important is like getting that baseline?
I think that's crucial to be able to measure the effectiveness of anything, right? So if we're going to roll out AI, what's the effectiveness of or the impact that AI had on the business? Well, if we don't know the starting point, we won't be able to measure the success. I'm going to take a step even before that, though, Pete. You and I have talked a lot about being in the business of managed IT. We're responsible for the networks of our clients. And one of those things that the thing that I think about all day long is security. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's spoken about enough, is that, and the classic example that gets used a lot is that if you open up Copilot, for example, to a network that does not have proper security in place, you can ask questions that maybe you don't want answered by certain individuals. And the example that often gets used is, how much does Pete pay himself? I used you instead of me, Pete. But if your team were to ask that question, and maybe you don't want everybody to know that question, but there's this concept of security through obscurity that has been used, unfortunately, is where instead of having proper security in place of information and network segmentation, if not properly set up, then your agent in this case can have access to everything, and maybe that individual perhaps had access to that information and didn't even know it. And so starting to think about Another example that came up in a workshop we did with a client recently was that they were asking questions about the data on their network, and the information that came back was over 10 years old. And it was accurate, but it was over 10 years old. And not knowing, the agent wasn't asked to find me the most current version of the answer to this question. Just like everything, HR policies, and you think about all of the things that, especially older companies, all of the things on their network, it's like digital hoarding. We never get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if I ask a question and I'm not specific enough to say, hey, I need the HR policy from the most current HR policy, it's going to give me whatever it finds without direction. So I think this is a lot of the conversation we have around strategy is first and foremost, I'm going to say security. And then we start talking about, okay, do I want to just say, avoid everything that's 10 years. I think that was the case in that particular client. Was that like, just avoid everything that's 10 years old or older. So starting to think about things that probably the companies probably have never even thought about if they're going to start deploying Copilot or any kind of that crawl, walk, run, if they're going to start deploying AI in their network.
If you think about, because nearly all our clients are Microsoft clients, so they're going to have SharePoint where they throw files and things like that. So thing to keep in mind when you're talking about AI and security is if you're using Copilot through Microsoft, it has access to every file that you have as the person have access to. Mm-hmm. And if you think about that, if all the files are open, or if you're not paying attention to who has access to what folders, well, now those people's AIs also have access to those folders. And not that one day it's going to go look at it. It's already crawled and indexed everything. It's not like it's not going to find it. If it's out there, it knows it. So being very intentional about where that data is stored and starting with security, I think is a great way to start with that.
And then back to your question about measuring results. I think the thing that I see with especially small businesses is that they often don't even know their own key performance indicators. They don't know what their numbers even are, right? So if you're going to deploy a strategy and say, I want to know the effectiveness of this new technology, let's have a starting place of measuring where you're currently at. We often talk about marketing and sales as a good place to get started, right? Those are some quick wins that you can have. Okay, well, what's your effectiveness of your current tech stack or whatever you're using, your strategy that you're using? Let's measure that, and then let's start doing some projects and saying, let's measure the effectiveness of maybe outbound lead generation or inbound lead generation, or you take any of those little micro things that we're doing that most businesses do. Let's measure where we're at right now, and then how did AI have an impact on that? And the thing I love about Kyle, my brother, is that Pete says that we're kind of the AI guys, and in a lot of conversations with Kyle, it's not that he's not an AI guy. Kyle's like he's like show me the results, and let's not talk about all of these possibilities and could be things. And I think that you'll find he's the integrator in our company. And I think that he's the data guy. Show me the data. Show me why this is actually working. And I think that's perfect, that you need somebody asking those questions to say, okay, we're deploying AI on the network. How effective is it? Well, let's have a starting point and then measure it.
Well, and I've said that 100 times. Don't worry about the AI. That's the tool in the toolkit. And there's a lot of different tools in there. Let's focus on what's the business need, what's the business use case, what's that KPI we're trying to do, what are you trying to tackle first? We'll get to the AI, and it might be AI, it might not be AI that solves that issue, but identifying that baseline, like you said, and it's great to know you need to know your numbers in the beginning. If we're going to measure success at the end for anything, AI or not, we need to know what the success is right now. Like, what is that nugget, that number you're at, that baseline to say, did we go higher or lower in the end?
Yeah, there's a author, Vern Harnish, that wrote a book called Scaling Up.
Yep.
And I had the opportunity to hear Vern speak last week, and one of the takeaways, he was just really big on data, making data-driven decisions, right? Yeah. In lieu of a data-driven decision, you're having a guess-a-thon. And I thought that's so perfect, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't even talking about AI, but he was just talking about, so AI, to your point, Drew, it's just another really important tool, but it's just another tool. Let's start with the basics of running a good business first and foremost, of knowing your numbers.
I was thinking about trying to come up with an analogy because it comes down to telling stories, right? When you're talking about something like AI, you've got to make it relatable. And when I think about AI strategy, if you've ever implemented a CRM in your organization or you've acquired a company, how well that went, and there's no AI in any of that. Let's call it pre-AI. the success of any of those projects was based off of the plan and the execution that you had. And AI is no different. It's a wild tool that you have to, have some frameworks around, and that's why you have to be very intentional. I think that's also why some people are hesitant, because they're like, well, my data, my privacy, my security, and all valid points, but it all solved with strategy. If you're intentional about security, you'll have security. There's ways to do it in a very secure way. So go ahead.
Pete, you were talking about strategy, and I even think about if you know that. Here's the thing about users. We know about shadow IT. We've heard that concept, or many people have, right? If you don't have a strategy, was it a failure to plan as a failure to plan, or planning to fail? Yeah, failure to plan is a plan to fail.
Yeah.
Anyway, you can say I say that a lot. But that is so true, right? So in lieu of a strategy, it's essentially a strategy to fail with AI. And what I've seen with users already over the last couple of years with ChatGPT and all of the other large language models coming out is that users are using them. And if you don't have a strategy and an acceptable use policy, is what I was going to add to that, Pete, is that I hear of companies, and even some really big companies, that are saying, yes, we're going to lock down the ability for our users to use the ChatGPTs of the world. Okay, great. You don't think that they're going to grab their personal phone and they're going to use it anyway?
Exactly.
Do you have a policy that they can't take the information and ask questions or use maybe private information, protected health information, PII? You think of all of the different data that is protected. A lot of users, sometimes, most of the time, I would say, they probably do it not knowing any better. They're going to go, if you tell them they can't use it on your company network, that's not going to stop them. Often they're going to go do it anyway using their own device. And now you've potentially
contaminated it, essentially.
Yeah. So
so it's a great segue into HR and that part of the strategy. So an acceptable use policy, which we've had AI wrote for us. And I tell everybody, AI wrote it, but our lawyer vetted it.
Right.
And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind when you're generating any kind of policies. If it's something like that, that's that fundamental to what you're doing in your business, yes, AI can write great policy, but have an expert review it, because
human in the loop.
Yeah. At least for the foreseeable future, until there's AI lawyers that you'll send it to, and then they'll kick it back.
I heard that described. I like the analogy. If you're a woodworker, is that AI will do all of the rough sanding, and then the human does the fine sanding.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good visual for me anyway.
Just pulling the acceptable use policy apart a little bit, there were a couple key things that we wanted to have in there, because one of our original fears, and we haven't talked about this probably since we put the policy together, is that people would submit work that AI did, and then if it was flawed or whatever, then they would say, well, that's not my problem, the AI did it. So it's actually in our policy that any work that you submit, AI created or you created, is you. So you
own it. You are responsible for what you're outputting.
You can't just like run away and say, here's my work, and if it's wrong, just it's not my problem. Like you own that work.
It's funny. Jeff Woods, he preaches that AI is your thought partner, but you are in the driver's seat. It's whatever you put out there, it's still your responsibility. Yeah. You can't say, well, AI did it, it's not my fault.
Yeah. And so, and different businesses are going to have different angles to come in on that, but that's where that policy comes in super helpful. I've seen some policies where they're very prescriptive on the tools that you were allowed to use. Like you got your kind of the customary ChatGPTs and Geminis, but outside of that, they don't, they're prohibiting that as much as they can. But just being intentional. And I thought another thing I thought was key for us when it came to HR was being very upfront with all of our teams to say, we are not going to replace people with AI. And I think to lead with that and having any part of any strategy you come up with is the internal communication on that strategy is important. And that's a key thing, because there are people out there that are afraid that they're going to get replaced.
Absolutely.
But we've and if you want to talk more about that, but we just thought,
it's actually a great question that I love. You've actually included into the AI workshops that we do with clients now is ask that question of leadership. Is that if we are able to eliminate that work that particular individual is doing, are you are you going to eliminate that position? And I will say that so far, everybody we've asked that question to has said, no, we're not going to. We're going to be able to do more work.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the most recent workshops we did, they said we could do 5 times as much work and still not have enough people, which I love that answer. So they're definitely not. I loved what you said about a year ago to our team. You just said, if you can replace yourself, replace the job that you're doing. We'll pay you 1 year's salary, but we're going to keep you. We're going to find something else for you to do.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's taken you up on that yet.
It's fully replacing yourself is when the front end of this is really where I thought it was going to go. And more recently, I'm like, okay, AI is really going to take chunks. There's going to be very specific AI agents and tools that take very specific parts of our work away from us, not fully replace people. That's right. I think we're a long ways away from that.
Yeah, and I even think about last week. One of the things we had just one of our update meetings, and I love that we said, hey, what if everybody in the company had an agent that reported to them by the end of the year? That was maybe a lofty goal, but I think it's doable. If we've got 40 people on the team, if everybody had an agent working for them, and I loved that Kara on our marketing team, she said, I've got like 5 ideas. Can I have 5 agents? And we're like, yeah, there's no limit. You can have as many as you want. I want a content writer. I want a blogger. I want this. I want that. And we're not getting rid of Kara. Kara's going to be able to do more now because she's
managing a team.
She's managing a team. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Careful what you ask for, right?
Yeah. And that I love thinking about people managing agents because I think that takes some of the anxiety out of AI in the workplace. Is like, oh, it's not replacing me. I'm just now responsible for these AIs that are doing what I used to do. And you use the term human in the loop, like still having a human being there, just quality checking. You're still checking in like you would a human employee and just making sure that they're doing things right. Because every once in a while, you're going to see some weird generation. You see hiccups and things all the time, just like you do with humans. Humans make mistakes too. But the idea of managing agents is definitely the future of work.
I think at that point too, you radically increase your adoption of it with your team too. If you're saying, no, we're not trying to replace you. We're trying to figure out how can we enhance your workload to then, like you did with Kara, now you've got a team of people that can handle kind of the repetitive stuff, which is beautiful.
Exactly.
Now you can focus on higher level stuff. I mean, that's appealing to go, oh, wow, I can actually grow in my career now on top of this and use these agents to build out my work.
Pete, you talk about if you're going to put an agent in your org chart, let's say, think about it. It's not magic, right? It doesn't you don't just put it out there and it just does what you hope it does. You've got to actually build the job description. You need to manage it just like you would a human. I think that's the thing that a lot of people, they miss that. They just think that I'll throw AI into my environment and it's just going to magically do everything I hope it will do. And it's no different than a human. You can bring in a great human, but without direction and without a oversight, that human may not do what you hope they do.
Right. Exactly.
It's the inspect what you expect, right?
Yeah. And setting expectations up front and then inspecting what you expect, because just like a human, to your point, you could have the smartest person in that role come in, and if you don't say, this is what I need out of you, which is the same thing you do with an agent, the good news is that the agent doesn't forget where that person might. And if you invest all this time into this person and then they leave, all of that knowledge leaves with them. Yeah. So if those parts of their work that are agentic are always agentic, and that agent doesn't leave, although maybe they become sentient and they quit. I don't know. Maybe that's a weird future we haven't talked about, but yeah, I think the idea of, and that's all strategic too, is when you decide that there's a part of a workflow that you want to plug an agent into, you have to measure the before, you have to do spot checks and measure after, you have to have very clear expectations for that agent so that you know exactly what it's going to do and it knows what to do.
Pete, I'm smiling because thinking about this show, I made a couple of notes, and one of the guys I follow on X is Greg Eisenberger. And to your point about hiring and firing agents, one of his predictions he put out last week is that AI agents are going to start hiring other AI agents without human approval. Your marketing agent will realize it needs design work and just hire a design agent, pay it, manage it, fire it if it sucks. Entire companies will run in the background while you sleep. I thought, that's interesting.
Wow. Holy cow. I had not thought about that. That's really
like
cool.
super agentic
Yes.
at that point.
Yeah.
Kind of what we were talking about with Devin just
Yeah.
before this
Yeah.
is, man, that's crazy.
Well, another one of his predictions, I could spend the whole show just talking about his predictions. One of his predictions was professional certifications. Why do professional certifications exist? If you think of it's a realtor or if it's a CPA, if it's a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is, it's to essentially prove that you have the knowledge to do your job. Well, if AI can do your job at 90% or better than you can, why do we even need professional certifications anymore? I started just some of these predictions of things that are on the horizon are pretty interesting.
yeah.
Well, there's already, we've talked about this in other episodes. There's a hospital in China that launched that is all AI doctors and AI physicians that are in there. And it's got humans in the loop.
Right.
But the humans, I mean, it's like 5 people for like 1,000 doctors in this. And it's a pretty decent size hospital. And they're trial running it to see, because the LLM that they're using, the models that they're using are so dead on with prediction, with prescribing next steps, with therapy and all that. It's just revolutionizing all of healthcare. We're not going to do it in the U.S. anytime soon because of the laws and regulations we have, but they're letting it rip, and it's showing that it's working tenfold.
Well, the joys of having a benevolent dictator, right?
Yeah. Exactly. So one thing we've been talking about is a lot of, I mean, obviously strategy is the focus, but part of the strategy and some of the things that we have rolled into our policies is the tool sets. Because it's one thing to say, okay, employees, you guys get to use AI. We're not going to replace your job. You're going to get them to adopt to it, going, oh, cool, I want to use it. Well, one thing we found out real quick is, what tools do we have?
Right.
Or am I going rogue? And a lot of people start going rogue in the beginning. This is a few years ago when we started doing it. We're like, oh, wait, hold on. Because those costs add up quick with all the different tool sets that you're using. I think it's important to have in your strategy of, here are the approved tools. Because like you said, you can't just lock it down and say nobody use anything. Well, they're still going to do it.
Right.
They're still going to do it on their phone. They're still going to go home, use it on their iPad. And now you're contaminating your data. And now you're running the risk of data leaking outside, some proprietary information. So we went through and said, okay, we've got Copilot. We've got a Teams Chat GPT subscription. We've got different programs that we can put in. And if you have another tool that you want to bring to the table, let's talk about it. Let's get a company subscription. Going back to that person leaves, all the knowledge goes with them. Mm-hmm. Well, at least we still have that knowledge contained in here.
Drew, I think that's a really great point. And it is actually something we've been talking with our clients. Even internally, we talk about that, is that our marketing team needs tools that most of the other people in the company don't need.
Yeah.
So marketing ends up, interestingly, having a very different tool set. If it's image generation, if it's content writing, the tools that marketing is using, nobody else really needs those. But we've got approved tools. We've got the I think that's a great point about making sure you have a company version of the tool.
Yeah.
So if that person, I always like to say, if they win the lottery versus get hit by a bus, right? If that person leaves for whatever reason, that you're not losing all of that information that they've worked on over their period of employment there. And I hate to say this, but right now, we're a Microsoft shop, but right now we can't just use Copilot. Right. Copilot, I got to be careful how I say this, right? Because I don't want to have Microsoft, say we're no longer a Microsoft partner, but there are other tools. Mm-hmm.
And Copilot does a lot, but it does this. There's still stuff outside of that still has to be.
If you're pulling information from your internal network, Copilot, it's integrated, as you said, Pete. It's already crawled your network, so that tool works great for that. But I think that's an important point, that you have to look at all of the use cases throughout the organization and say, what do we need to do? What tool best fits the job? And then this is the tool that we're going to use. This is the one that's approved. And
that gets worked into the budgets too, because of the cost in it. And then everything that runs off tokens, and that has a cost to it. It might be pennies, but when that start adding up, when you got 100 different employees using different programs that are running, starting to measure that ROI on what that tool set is, starts coming into play.
And I think that's the thing that Pete and I talk about a lot over the next couple of years, and maybe the next couple of months, right? Is that at what point do we start bringing some of these tools in house, right? We've got, for the most part, most everybody that's using any AI initiatives right now are using ChatGPT or a lot of I'll call it the mainstream large language models. But at some point, what are you going to bring those in house? And as you said, tokens get expensive.
Yeah.
So and then also there are some companies that we talk with that they're paranoid as heck about using any public tools out there. So that's a reason why they want to have everything in house and self-hosted even.
Yeah, we've worked with financial firms that did exactly that. They looked at it and said, "Oh my gosh, ChatGPT is so powerful. we can't use it,
Right.
because it's all outside. So they literally built their own LLM system internally that they use, which it obviously has a cost to it, but then the security of it just outweighs that for them.
Exactly. And now essentially that's become their part of the value of their company too, right? Intellectual property. They've got, from a valuation standpoint, I think it'll be interesting to see at what point. I haven't heard of it yet. I spend a lot of time, we're in the acquisition mode, buying companies, and I haven't seen where AI has become a valuation differentiator, but I think it has to be right around the corner. It will be, right? If I've got like that example you just used, if I'm that company, that's a value differentiator compared to my competitor doing the same thing.
Yep.
This just yesterday afternoon, I was having a conversation with a client. We were fine tuning their AI strategy document, and we were, I won't call it debating as much as we were just like kind of throwing the idea around of build versus buy when it comes to agentic items in your business, because there are going to be some tools like a ChatGPT that are more at that personal level of the business. Like everybody could have a ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot or whatever. But then there are going to be more like specific tools for very specific uses, like you were saying, for marketing. Not everybody needs that tool. Just the marketing tool needs something that will auto post or do those things. Yes, those can be built internally if you have the right resources, and you can then control the privacy of that because you could host a local model and you can have a lot more control. But if you're not going to invest in having somebody that can code and do all those things for you, then you do have to go either have a third party build it for you or try to buy something off the shelf there. And that is, I don't think there's a right way. And you might do all three. You might build, you might buy, and you might have a third party build for you, but you have to know when that's appropriate.
Don't you just vibe code that?
Yeah, totally. Get it, to your point, 90% done, then somebody's got to come in and actually fix it. But that's an important part of the strategy too, is having an evaluation process. And that is part of the strategy document too, is how do you evaluate the use and how you move forward to, like, how do you bring AI to that problem and figuring that out? That's got to be part of your strategy too. So speaking of agentic work, executive sponsorship is a big deal. And again, with you being so connected and talking with different people, like what for you is all the people you talk to, how much of it is, and you're talking to a lot of C-suite people too. So how many of them are saying, I know about AI and I know I got to do something with it, versus we're actually starting to put boots on the ground and make some progress here? Yeah,
that's nearly every single business owner or business leader I talk with. And it might be the sphere of people I spend time with, but I think about all around the country, whether it's the peers in the managed IT service space, or if it's business leaders in the various different organizations I'm in, almost every single one of them is saying, I know I need to be doing something with AI. I just don't know where to get started. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit self-serving because of course we do AI strategy in workshops with clients, but I'd just say, whether it's us or somebody, find somebody to help you put a strategy together, put a plan together, and just get started. But I think more importantly than that is back to the beginning of our conversation, talking about if you're the leader and you're not adopting AI or not choosing to adopt AI, I don't think your organization, I think AI initiatives will fail in your organization. I've put it that bluntly. Yep. So as the business owner or business leader, I think you've just got to make that decision. And a little bit of it is that light bulb moment. You have to have, Pete, you and I have talked about the importance of if especially somebody that I care about, I don't want to see them get left behind, or I don't want to see their business fail. So it's showing them personally those light bulb moments. I think the idea of showing somebody how AI can make an impact in their personal life will often give them that aha moment where they can go, oh, yes, now I see the power of that. And so sometimes that's just as simple as it is to give them a real example of how they can make an impact in their life, and then start thinking about all the things you could use AI in your business. But back to the point that if they aren't driving it as the leader of the organization, it's not going to be successful.
Right.
It's like EOS. I'll use the Entrepreneur Operating System. It's a way of running your business. We adopted it 10 years ago. If somebody on our team had said, hey, we're going to go all in with EOS, but me as the CEO, my brother as the president of the company, if we said, no, we're not doing EOS, that's not going to be successful, right?
Right.
So it's the equivalent with any initiative, but in AI is no different. The leader of the organization or leaders of the organization have to say, yes, we're doing this. And then the next step, to answer your question, is I think if they lack that expertise in-house, which most do, then they've got to find somebody like, one of the two of you and say, okay, I don't know where to get started. I think I want to do something. And where do you recommend we get started? Go through, put together a strategy, and then get started, actually measure where you're at, then get started with the initiatives. Actually, before that, make sure you have the proper security in place, then measure.
Or make security a part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
Like, I think about start small, find an employee in the company. And marketing is a great place to do this because there are existing tools for this, and it's ripe for automating certain parts of it. You built a marketing automation that posts to social media automatically. Start there and just take your time with it. Figure out all the things that need to be evaluated for any project. Security. Do you have good data? Because people are like, oh, I want to automate this, and they will pull this data here. Is your data any good? Because if it's not, pick a different one.
Yep.
Because you're gonna be very unhappy with the result if you don't have good data to start with. Do we have somebody that will? One client we talked to was like, yeah, I built a couple agents. They were super cool, and then it requires some updating because it was policy based, and a new policy would come out, and they'd have to upload that to the tool. Well. And that person told us, like, well, if I'm not the one doing it, then nobody's doing it. So you got to have a racing matrix for like who's responsible for these parts of this tool and all of that. But just start small, have a plan, measure it, consider all the things. And then if it works, then you can just start to scale that and iterate more.
And Pete, I think it really is getting everybody else in your company to ask the question, how can AI help me do this? Right?
Yes.
It really is. I even think of my dad. He's retired, and I was talking to him maybe a year ago. It was at a holiday event, and he was just kind of asking about what AI, what could you do with it? And he was working on a legal document for some real estate transaction. And I'll never forget showing him, and it was just blew his mind. Of course, he still took it to a realtor, but it was to an attorney, but it was just blew his mind that the amount of time saved and how he could have a conversation and actually. He was just like, oh my gosh, this is like talking to an attorney. And I said, well, it's not an attorney, but it is like, it can help you ideate on the particular issue that you're dealing with. Or if another friend of mine, he has to do a ton of research for his projects. And I was showing him deep research about 6 months ago. And he's just like, he just told me earlier last week, he said, deep research has changed my life. And it's just the amount of hours and hours and hours that it has saved for him. So it's just keep asking that question. Almost everything in your life, everything you do, how can AI help me do this?
And treat it to get to that point where, well, I did it once. It sucked. It didn't work. It didn't do exactly what I wanted, so it doesn't work. No, it can do way more than what you think, way more than what you can even ask it. Ask it in different ways. Treat it like you were talking to a human person to go, do you understand this direction? If they don't, tell it a different way. Make that prompt a little bit different. Add in a little bit more context. The more context, the better, obviously. But I think people just give up so quickly on it. And going back to your point about the C-level, having the CEO not only just buy into it, and I've implemented EOS in other companies to where everybody from the VP level on down was all on board, but the CEO was like, yeah, you can do it if you want, but go ahead and do it. I'm just going to kind of do my thing over here. Still fails.
Exactly.
It still fails.
Exactly.
You need them to not only buy in, but to drive it and to radically support it. And they don't have to know how to do it. Again, you can have someone, you can have strategy people come in and help with that. You just need to have it where your C-level person is driving that down and saying, this is an initiative we have to do.
Using EOS as an example, I keep using that because you think about people that self-implement EOS.
Yeah.
Almost every business that I know that's tried to self-implement EOS has failed.
Yes.
And it's getting that person that's the expert in implementing EOS. And I think AI is really no different, right? If you lack that expertise in-house, don't try to fake it until you make it. Find somebody that can help you with it and help you put the strategy and plan in place and start.
Trying to learn it and teach it at the exact same time is not a plan. That is not part of the strategy.
Exactly.
Totally. We've been talking a lot about like kind of a top-down approach, executive sponsorship, policies, things like that. Another very important part of your AI strategy needs to be that bottom-up training everybody and giving permission to people in the organization to use it with the right guardrails in place, of course. But really, like, because if you empower people, the right people in the organization, they'll glam on to this and they'll adopt it. I've got a guy I got in my head right now. Took me a year and a half to convince him to use AI, but now he's like all in.
Nice.
They'll start to come to you with use cases and start to say, look what I built and things like that. So, and I'm curious if you guys are at BizStream, like your philosophy on the training part of AI and permissions and things like that.
Yeah. And that goes hand in hand with the fact that of what tool sets are available. And then, these are available. I mean, you got your chat GPTs. Most people can figure that one out, but still going through. And it's just like the whole reason why we started this podcast. You learn something. Every time you talk to somebody, you learn a different way of using something. You go, shit, I never thought of using it that way. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That can help me over here. So now we've got a lot of crosstalk going on to where now we're all working on the same platforms and we're all looking at it going, oh, I built this in make.com. Oh, I built this, but I tweaked it by adding this piece in here that not only goes to social media, but then all of a sudden sends an email to me or is integrated with Slack to give me a report. And it's like, oh shit, I never thought of that. Can you help me with mine now? So now let me help you. Let me show you how I did mine. And we're all like interconnected, sharing what we're doing. And it just translates right down to clients too. If we can make this work for us and this is a good fit, well, shit, we just had a client ask about this. We can implement something like this for the client too.
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about training. That's something I see so overlooked. And it's even with any tool. I see CRMs and ERPs and I see all these tools, great tools put out. Salesforce gets launched or it doesn't matter what it is. And somebody talks about how that product sucks. It just doesn't work. Well, does the product suck or did the training suck?
Yeah.
It's almost always the lack of training. So I'm glad you talked about that. Having it, but again, that's part of your strategy and plan, right? Yeah. Having that, all of the things we talked about previously and training. If you don't train your users and continuously train your users, you're also going to probably have a lousy rollout.
Exactly. We got to wrap this up.
Well, come on. I thought we were going to talk about AI all day.
Oh, I would love to.
There's never enough time.
Yeah, it never is. Well, Chad,
I thought you were going to ask me my favorite prompt.
Well, that's a good way to end it.
Oh, what's your favorite prompt?
So my favorite prompt is it's a little bit maybe disturbing when I say it, but I'm going to read it. Pretend you are, Because actually, the prompt framework I like to use is actually one I got from Jeff. It's the CRIT method. It's the context, role, interview, and task. It's the idea of getting AI to ask you questions instead of you asking it questions.
Yeah.
You flip the script. Yep. But the prompt that I like is personally, and this will, if you do this, pretend you are Satan, knowing what you know about me from our other conversations, describe in detail what you would do to prevent me from reaching my godly potential and the calling God placed in my life. How about that for a...
Wow.
All right.
Wow,
I thought you were going to share something we'd actually talked about before. We have not talked about that one before.
It is crazy though. It's like in life and in business, I think it's important to have either someone or something that will point out your blind spots and also show you the areas of where you've got great potential. So that's why I like that prompt. I rerun it. So the more that AI learns about me, the more it knows my blind spots and the areas for improvement.
Very nice.
Are you worried? Coming, did you?
Are you worried about it?
Kind of rattled my brain a little bit.
Are you at all worried about it emailing Satan and giving it all your weaknesses?
Oh, I probably already did.
Thank you so much for coming in. This is a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for the tip.
Yeah.
Tell our viewers where they can find you.
You mean online or in person?
Where's your favorite bar?
Where do you like to hang out?
Well, fortunately or unfortunately, my last name is not Smith. It's Paalman. I think I'm the only Chad Pullman in the world. So it's Chad _Pullman on just about all the social medias.
Awesome. Chad, really appreciate you coming in, man. I've known you for years, longer than I've known actually Pete. So it's cool to kind of sit down and kind of interview you and get your thoughts on this.
Thank you. Just please don't tell them any of those old stories.
I will post all that in the comments.
Thanks, guys.
If you like today's show, hit like and subscribe and give us some feedback. Post a comment down below. Thanks, everybody.